Isabella Hartman never went on blind dates, not because she couldn't get one, but because she didn't believe in them. She believed in control, in plans, in things that could be managed and measured. At 32, she was the kind of woman people whispered about in corporate hallways, brilliant, composed, and beautiful in a cold, untouchable way. The heir to the Hartman fortune and the executive director of one of the city's most successful real estate firms, Isabella had her life mapped out with the precision of a spreadsheet. But for once, she had allowed her best friend and assistant, Claire, to talk her into something reckless. "He's perfect for you," Claire had said, practically glowing with excitement. Tall, charming, runs a startup, and totally not intimidated by powerful women. That last part had made Isabella laugh, but somehow, she had said yes. And now, sitting at a corner table in the upscale Blue Olive Bistro, she was beginning to regret it. The restaurant was softly lit, romantic in a way that made her feel oddly out of place. She smoothed her navy blue dress and checked the time again, 15 minutes late. She sighed, stirring her water with a straw as couples around her clinked glasses and whispered over candlelight. Maybe this was karma for agreeing to something so unlike her. When the waiter stopped by to ask if she'd like to order, she shook her head politely, trying to hide her growing irritation. Her phone buzzed, but it wasn't the man she was supposed to meet, it was another work email. She set it down with a frown. The truth was, she would rather be at her desk than sitting here waiting for someone she didn't know to disappoint her. Just as she reached for her purse to leave, a sharp popping sound echoed from outside, followed by a thin curl of gray smoke. People at the nearest tables turned their heads toward the window. Isabella's heart sank when she saw the source, her silver Mercedes-Benz parked just outside, steam hissing from under its hood. "Perfect," she muttered, pushing back her chair. As she hurried out into the chilly evening, the rain had started again, soft but persistent. Standing by her smoking car was a man in a grease-stained jacket, his hair dark and tousled from the drizzle. He looked up when she approached, his face breaking into an easy grin. "Looks like your alternator's shot," he said, voice deep and casual. "You hear a squealing before it died?" Isabella blinked, momentarily thrown off. "I'm sorry, what?" He laughed lightly. "Sorry, mechanic talk. I'm Jake. My shop's down the street. I can patch it up enough to get you home if you'd like." Something about his confidence, his grounded tone, made her pause. Most men stumbled over their words around her, this one didn't. She nodded reluctantly and stepped back as he knelt beside the car, working with sure, practiced movements. Rain dripped down his sleeve, glinting under the streetlight. Within minutes, the engine sputtered back to life. "There you go," he said, standing and wiping his hands on a rag. "Should hold till tomorrow." Isabella reached for her wallet. "Send the bill to Hartman Properties." He shook his head, smiling. "No charge for helping someone in the rain." She hesitated, surprised. As he walked away, a little girl in a yellow raincoat ran up and grabbed his hand. She looked back at Isabella and waved before they climbed into an old pickup truck. For a long moment, Isabella stood there, water dripping from her umbrella, her heart strangely unsettled. She had come out tonight expecting another disappointment, but she left wondering about the mechanic who'd smiled at her like she was just another person, not a woman with a fortune or a name to protect. And for the first time in years, something warm flickered beneath the layers of control she wore like armor. The next morning, Isabella stood in her driveway staring at her car in disbelief. The engine refused to start, clicking uselessly as though mocking her. She tried again, nothing. Her driver was out sick, and the thought of calling a tow service made her stomach turn. Her morning meetings were too important to miss, and yet she had no other option. Against every instinct, she pulled out the scrap of paper she'd tucked into her purse the night before, the one with Jake's number scrawled in messy handwriting. She hesitated for a moment before dialing. Turner's Auto, came the same calm, steady voice she remembered. "Jake speaking." Isabella exhaled slowly. "My car won't start," she said, trying to sound composed. It's Isabella Hartman, the woman from last night. There was a short pause, then a hint of amusement in his tone. Ah, the rainstorm Mercedes. Give me 20 minutes. Exactly 20 minutes later, the sound of a rumbling pickup truck broke the quiet of her pristine neighborhood. It looked wildly out of place between the marble fountain and neatly trimmed hedges. Jake stepped out, wearing his same worn leather jacket, but now the sun revealed the faint streaks of engine oil that never seemed to wash off his hands. Fancy place, he said with a grin as he approached. Hope the neighbors don't think I'm lowering property value. Isabella tried not to smile. Just fix the car, Mr. Turner, she replied, folding her arms. As he opened the hood, a small voice piped up from the truck. Daddy, can I come out? A little girl with bright brown eyes and pigtails hopped down, holding a stuffed bunny. Lily, Jake said gently, stay where I can see you, okay? She nodded and began wandering curiously toward the flower beds. Isabella found herself watching her, strangely captivated by the way the child hummed softly while tracing raindrops on a rose petal. She's your daughter? Isabella asked. Jake glanced up from the engine and nodded, his expression softening. Yeah. She's my whole world. Her mom left when she was 2, so it's been just us since. His voice was matter-of-fact, not bitter, but there was something in his eyes, something that spoke of long nights and quiet sacrifices. The engine roared to life again within minutes. There you go, Jake said, closing the hood. Just a loose connection. Nothing too serious. Isabella handed him an envelope with cash inside, insisting he take it. He looked uncomfortable but finally accepted with a small nod. Thank you, she said sincerely. And thank you for, yesterday. He shrugged lightly. No problem. People help people, it's not that complicated. When he called for Lily, the little girl ran back, waving her bunny toward Isabella. Bye, Miss Pretty Car Lady, she chirped before climbing into the truck. Isabella laughed, a real laugh, one she hadn't heard from herself in years. As the old pickup rumbled down her driveway, she realized she was still smiling. The morning felt lighter somehow, and as she looked at her reflection in the car window, she hardly recognized the woman staring back. For the first time in a long while, Isabella Hartman felt something she couldn't define, a quiet, impossible longing for more than the life she had built. A week passed, but Isabella couldn't stop thinking about Jake and his little girl. She told herself it was just curiosity, a passing thought, but his easy smile kept finding its way into her mind between board meetings and phone calls. One evening, while reviewing charity proposals for her company, a familiar name caught her attention, Turner's Auto. Her firm was sponsoring a local fundraiser for single parents, and Jake's small garage had volunteered free car maintenance for attendees. Something inside her tightened. Maybe fate was playing tricks on her, or maybe it was giving her a chance to see him again. The night of the event arrived. The ballroom shimmered with soft gold lights and laughter. Isabella looked breathtaking in an elegant silver gown, her hair swept into a graceful knot. She was in her element, confident, composed, until she spotted him across the room. Jake stood near the refreshment table, looking as out of place as his old truck would have been in her driveway. His shirt was neatly ironed but clearly second-hand, and his calloused hands fidgeted awkwardly at his sides. Yet when his daughter, Lily, tugged his sleeve and pointed excitedly at the decorations, his entire face softened in a way that made Isabella's chest ache. When their eyes met, Jake smiled that same unguarded smile, and she felt the ground shift beneath her. Well, if I'd known fancy people came here, I'd have worn a tie, he joked as he walked over. Isabella laughed, surprised at how easily her nerves melted. You look fine, she replied, and she meant it. They found themselves standing side by side, watching Lily chase bubbles near the stage. You didn't tell me you were part of the sponsors, he said. You didn't tell me you were part of this, she countered, tilting her head. I guess we're both guilty of surprises. As the evening went on, they talked, really talked. Jake told her about his late nights at the garage, about the customers who couldn't afford repairs but whom he helped anyway. He spoke of Lily's dream to become a dancer, and how every penny he made went toward her lessons. Isabella, in turn, found herself sharing pieces of her life she never revealed to anyone, the pressure of living up to her father's shadow, the loneliness hidden beneath her perfect life. Jake listened quietly, his gaze never leaving hers, and for the first time in years, she felt seen, not judged. When the music began to fade, they stepped outside to the terrace for air. The city glowed below them, lights shimmering like stars. "Can I ask you something?" Jake said, leaning against the railing. "Why do you always look like you're waiting for something to go wrong?" His question caught her off guard. "Because it usually does," she whispered. He nodded slowly, eyes warm and steady. "Maybe this time, it won't." The silence that followed was electric, thick with something neither dared name. For a long moment, they just stood there, two people from different worlds, drawn together by something stronger than logic or fear. When Lily peeked through the door, giggling, "Daddy, are you coming?" Jake smiled softly. "Yeah, kiddo," he said, eyes still on Isabella. And as they parted that night, she realized that somewhere between a broken car and an unexpected friendship, her carefully built world was beginning to crack, in the best possible way. The weeks that followed blurred into a quiet rhythm Isabella had never known before. She found excuses to stop by Jake's garage, first under the pretense of checking on her car, then just to bring coffee or ask about Lily's dance recital. Each visit chipped away at the walls she'd built around her heart. The smell of motor oil and the hum of engines didn't belong to her world of boardrooms and luxury penthouses, yet she felt more at peace in that cluttered garage than in any office she'd ever stepped into. Jake treated her like a person, not a name or a paycheck. When he smiled at her, it wasn't the polished charm of the wealthy men she'd dated, it was real, disarming, and grounding. She found herself laughing again, the kind of laugh that came from somewhere deep and forgotten. But as the connection between them grew stronger, so did the fear inside her. What would her father say if he knew she was falling for a mechanic, a single dad, no less? What would her colleagues think? The thought of it terrified her almost as much as the idea of losing him. Then, one rainy afternoon, she drove to the garage and found the doors closed. The lights inside were off, and for a moment, panic seized her. When she finally caught sight of Jake through the window, her breath hitched. He was sitting on a stool, his face buried in his hands, shoulders heavy with exhaustion. She opened the door quietly. "Jake?" He looked up, startled, his eyes red. "Isabella. I didn't hear you." His voice was rough, and she saw the worry etched into his face. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. He hesitated before answering, as if ashamed. "It's Lily. She's sick, really sick. Fever won't break. I had to take her to the hospital last night, and he swallowed hard. I don't know how I'm going to pay for all of it." Without a second thought, Isabella stepped forward and placed her hand over his. "You don't have to do this alone," she said firmly. "Let me help." Jake shook his head, pride flashing in his eyes. "I can't let you do that. You've already done enough." But she refused to let go. "You helped me when you didn't have to, remember? Now it's my turn." Her voice broke slightly. "Please, Jake. Let me be there for you." The sincerity in her tone silenced him. He didn't say thank you, he didn't need to. The look in his eyes said everything. Days later, when Lily was finally home and recovering, Jake showed up at Isabella's office. He looked nervous, standing in the marble lobby among the polished executives, holding a single daisy wrapped in newspaper. When Isabella came out to meet him, he smiled shyly. "Lily wanted you to have this," he said quietly. "She said you fixed her daddy." Isabella's throat tightened as tears welled in her eyes. She took the flower gently and whispered, "She's wrong, Jake. You're the one who fixed me." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jake reached for her hand, his calloused fingers warm against her skin. The world outside her glass office melted away, the money, the power, the expectations. There was only him. When he leaned in and kissed her, it wasn't like in the movies. It was soft, hesitant, real. And for the first time in her life, Isabella Hartman felt something she'd never felt before, freedom. The woman who once believed love was a weakness had finally found strength in it. And the blind date that had gone wrong turned out to be the beginning of everything right.